Hi everyone, my name's Dare, and I live and work in Hollywood, and my focus in life is on filmmaking and writing, but I do a lot of visual effects, animation, editing, corporate video, short films, and other odds and ends around the media world. And I recently did a video for my good friend Serge Romelli, and I had a lot of requests to show how I did this video. Now, truthfully, there's a lot of different things happening in this video. But the main technique that is happening in 90% of this video is simply cutting up the photos in Photoshop and animating them inside of After Effects. Now, to show you this from scratch it takes about a good couple hours to sort of walk you through this technique from beginning to end. So just on YouTube, I wanted to just quickly show you the part that most of you are probably unfamiliar with, which is the After Effects part. And I've done a course for anybody who's really interested in seeing how this goes from start to finish. And you know, if you've watched the whole video, you know there's animated slideshows, and you know there's lens flares and stuff like that. All of that is, I would say, advanced techniques. And in the course, I really just focus on the primary and what I think is the most interesting part, which is flying through the photos by animating on their layers so that they overlap and so forth. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. And what I want to show you real quick is here's how I've cut up the layers in Photoshop. And again, I'm not going to show you how to do this in the YouTube tutorial because it just takes too long, and you may already be familiar with this. But I chose 3 photos from the opening scene, which was the sunrise, golden hour, and sunset photos of Serge. And if you look over here, I have multiple layers where I have basically cut out and I've feathered and overlapped each layer to make sure that there's no gaps in between them. And simply put, you basically select each layer, refine the edge, push it over, feather it, and delete the rest. And you just do that 3 times. So you have a background, midground, foreground, or in some cases I did it 5 or 6 times to make the photo more complex. And I prepped all of those as layers inside of Photoshop. If you want to see the full workflow for that, you can check it out on the course. Otherwise, hopefully you already know how to do that. Now let's go ahead and open up After Effects. I know After Effects is daunting when you first open it and you don't know anything about it, and it's partially because there are so many, it's endless. You can do so many hundreds of thousands of things inside of After Effects. It's almost like, where do you start? So when I do any corporate video, I always, before I get into heavy duty animation, I always create a guideline video first, which is very simply done in Premiere, and where I just lay out the text and the photos and the timing of them so that I can match that as I'm animating, because it's very easy to lose track and lose your way inside of After Effects if you don't have some sort of guide for it. So again, in the course, I show you how to use Premiere to do that very simply, so that you can create, you can take your slideshow photos and you can create a quick reference layer for that with whatever music you're going to use. But here we are. I'm going to go ahead and start from scratch here. So let's go ahead and I will delete this. I'm going to right click inside of here. I'm going to create a new composition, and we will call this, just name it YouTube tutorial, okay? Or whatever you want to call it. And you just want to make sure it's at 1920 by 1080. Square pixels, 23.976 is fine, 30 seconds is great. And click OK when you have it, and you can double click on it and open it up. And what we need to do now is we need to pull in our Photoshop layers. But what I want to do first is I want to actually drop my reference layer inside the timeline, just so I have a reference. And next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here, I'm going to hit File, and I'm going to click Import. Import multiple files, and what you want to do is you want to navigate to where the Photoshop files are, and wherever your photos are, and you basically are going to double click on whichever one it is, and you're going to choose layers. And in here you should have named your Photoshop layers, so you know background, midground, foreground. So you can pick each of them up, and as you import them, they will show up in here. And I've already picked them up in here, and here they are. So the next thing that you want to do is you want to take these background, foreground, midground, just select them, and you're going to drag and drop them, and just drop them right on the timeline. And this down here, similar to Premiere, it's just where you lay out layers of material against time. Okay, these are called compositions because you are putting you're compositing or compiling together different pieces of a photo or whatever you're doing to create an overall image or animation. Now, this is the solo button, so I can see, all right, so I know that I've got two things of text, and here is where the photo is going to come in. Okay, I'm going to hit the B key, and this this bar up here is your work area. It just shows which area you're working on. Okay, I'm going to hit the N key right here. That's kind of sets my in and my out. And by holding down Shift, I can snap to either one. Now, selecting these layers, I can go ahead and hit the Alt key and the bracket key, and that's going to trim them there and trim them there. Okay, I am now going to go ahead and I'm going to space these layers in time just by moving them slightly, and I'm doing this very roughly. I'm not checking frame by frame. I'm just kind of going, this is the basic position I want it to be in. I'm going to turn off solo layer so I can see everything again, and I'm going to turn off this bottom layer, which is my guide. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to go, okay, this isn't actually the sequence that I want these in. I want the background to come in first. I then want the middle ground to come in, which is this one, and I then want the foreground to come in. Pop, pop. Okay, I am then going to go ahead and I'm going to create a mask, making sure this layer is selected. This is the mask, the rectangular mask. Actually, hold on. If you notice, these don't quite reach the top and bottom, so we've got a black area. I'm going to select them and hit the S key, and I'm going to scale them to, let's go 105, just to make sure. Great. So they're now top and bottom. We don't have to worry about them being off the top. Now we're going to go ahead and select that. We are going to grab a mask. That's one thing I love about the Apple mouse, is it can really make it jump. And actually that mask is too big, but I've already created it, so I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to grab these handles on the side here and the side here. I have to fit up to 100%. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to animate this mask. And I'm going to do that by, you'll notice that when I put it on, the mask showed up down here. If it's closed, you can open it here, open it down there. We're going to set a keyframe, which is just basically a little point, and it tells the computer something is going to start, change, or stop at whatever point a keyframe is at. So I'm going to go forward, let's say about 12 frames. I'm going to make another keyframe. Then I'm going to go back to the first keyframe by pressing that. I'm going to double click on this, and I'm going to put that over there, and now the mask is animated. Okay, we're going to quickly do that again for the midground layer. Okay, oops, it's not quite holding all of that, so let's go ahead and let's double click on this, and let's open that up so it's covering the full layer. Okay, again, let's go ahead and we are going to, on mask path, we're going to add a keyframe. And over here, we're going to add another keyframe. And what we're going to do now is we are going to animate this, but now this is going to go from right to left, sorry. Okay, we're then going to do the same thing for the next layer, and we're going to go ahead and grab a mask, and this time we'll just have it come up from the bottom. Just like that. Okay, and we are going to go ahead and put that down, make sure we're at the front, set a keyframe, set a keyframe, And we're going to drag that down from the bottom. And now I'm going to go ahead and set the N key. And let's have a look at how this is going. Well, you'll see I mixed up my keyframes here. And that's great because it shows, I wanted to show you that you can just take that, drag that keyframe over there and that keyframe over there. And now we reversed it, but it's actually how we want it. Okay. I'm also going to, there's a hard edge here, and I think it just looks a bit nicer if we put a little bit of a softness on the edge of the masks. It will just help it come in just a little bit, not quite as abrupt. So that's the feather. Just like Photoshop, you feather your mask. Okay, and now that is up there. Okay, so that's basically our first photo. Now let's go ahead and let's look at our reference again. Okay, and let's zoom out a little bit. Okay, and our second photo is going to come in here. So I'm going to go ahead and use that as my reference. We want to drag these out so they're underneath where the other photo goes, because otherwise you'll get black under there. So let's go ahead and let's grab the golden hour photo. Let's drop these layers in here. And let's make sure that on this, let's now have the foreground come in first. Let's scale these real quick. Okay. And so we've got foreground. Let's arrange that so it's first. Foreground, middle ground, background. Great. Stretch that out. Stretch that out. Okay, we're going to create a mask here. Okay, we'll go ahead and we will create a mask for the middle section. Come on. Whoops. Something went bozo there. Let's try that again. What is going on? Ah, I know what's happening. Let's make sure that we're over it so we can actually see what's happening. Okay. A little too big. Let's bring that in. And then finally, for the background, let's put that there. Okay. And that now gives us these. We're going to go ahead and again, this time I'm going to go MM. Okay. I am going to set my keyframes. I'm going to have that come up from the bottom like that. And you know what? Let's turn off this layer soloing that we have happening here. Let's turn that off. Okay, and that's going up like that. Now about right there. Maybe a little bit sooner. This is where we want to make sure that this mask is coming in. So let's go ahead and put that in. Put that in, and we'll go back to our last mask. We'll go ahead and select our mask. And let's go ahead and have this come in from left to right. Okay, then right about here, let's have this one come in, and let's have this one come in from right to left. Okay. All right, so now as you can see, it's going over and the background goes to black. That's because it needs to cover the entire time that that transition is happening. All right, let's have a look. B key. Okay, those are too slow. By dragging these in, we can actually speed up the transitions, and by moving these layers around, we can make it go quicker. Let's look at that again. Okay, it's still bugging me here. I think this actually needs to just be well on its way over here. And while we're here, let's go ahead and let's feather these. Selecting the feathers. And all right, let's hold that there. Drag that in and 0. And when you do animation, you watch stuff on loops over and over again. Okay, and I think this and this just need to come in quicker. It's really easy to be, you want to make sure you're zoomed in enough so that you can actually see how fast things are going. It tends to make it a little easier to sort of visualize the actual animation. But this still feels too long. So I'm going to bring that in like that. And this one in like this, and this one in like this. That's 12 frames is half a second, and that's pretty good. Let's have a look. Much better, much better. Okay, so instead of showing you how to lap the third photo, I want to show you a couple other tricks really rapidly, and I know this is getting a little long, so real quick, I don't like when things sit on the screen. It's a bit boring. This is animation and motion graphics after all. So one little trick that you know, a lot of us motion graphics artists will do is we will go ahead, hold down the Alt key, hit S, and that's going to set a scale key. We will then go to the end, and we will do that again, making sure that they're all aligned. Because the layers are split, if you scale them differently, it's going to get funky. Unless you're really doing some advanced animation on it where you've overlapped and painted out areas so that you actually can animate them differently, just go ahead and keep these aligned for this. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. We're going to set this to 112, and that's going to modify all 3 of those because I had all 3 of those keyframes selected. And you will see, if I was to do these differently, you can see it breaks it. And that's, you really want to make sure that the keyframes are aligned so you don't break it and get black lines. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and do that on these as well. Alt S, go to the, you know, wherever that end is going to be, which should be about 4 or 5 seconds. Alt S again, and we'll cut these with the bracket, and we'll move this up to 115. And now let's have a look at this. You see how the slight bit of motion just it helps make you not think you're just staring at a static image, which is no bueno. Because this isn't, you know, we're not looking at a still, we're looking at an animated still. Okay, there's another thing that you can do here, which is how to explain this simply. Hit the U key, and you're going to expose all your keyframes that you've set for this. Now, when you have things starting and stopping inside of After Effects, these type of keyframes are called linear keyframes, and they basically, it's a hard start or a hard stop. And often, if you go ahead and you select those and you choose Keyframe Assistant, you can do Easy Ease In. And what this will do is it will just make it gradually come to a stop, as opposed to the hard stop and the hard start. Now, because these are starting out of frame, I don't, well, you know what, just for the sake of, you know, whoops, sorry. I want to just select these, and then I'm going to go ahead and Easy Ease Out, because it's going out like it's starting out and easing into an end. Okay, we'll do the same thing over here. We'll find these keyframes that are on there. We'll Easy Ease In and Easy Ease Out. And it's almost imperceptible, but it really does help. It just makes it a little bit smoother, not so rough. And that adds a layer of polish to motion graphics. And when you're hiring motion graphics artists, or you're trying to get high quality motion graphics done, you want to look for the little details like that make it very smooth. Okay, I think I'm probably at around the 10 or 15 minute mark here, and I did not want to go longer than that. I hope that shows you kind of the technique that I used for that. Again, if you want to see it from start to finish on this technique, including how do you cut it out in Photoshop, how do you do a timing file in Premiere, and then how do you animate them and add text and animated text inside of After Effects. I did do a course for that, but I'm hoping that for 90% of the people out there, this will answer whatever questions you had as to how did I do it. And thank you again for your time and watching, and I hope to do more tutorials shortly to show you more cool stuff. All right, catch you next time.